welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something a little different. You, our listeners, you wanted to explore IR theory, how it's evolved, and where it's going. Is it reaching its
end?
Or is there a new chapter coming? Something exciting? So we're going to try to take a deep dive into that today. And for this one, we're fortunate to have a couple of pretty dense scholarly pieces.
Yeah.
So first up, we have excerpts from The End of International Relations Theory. It's an article by Dunn, Hansen, and White, and it appears in the European Journal of International Relations. And then we're also going to be looking at Kumar's chapter called The Limitations of Grand Theory.
All right. So
buckle up. We're about to go on a very intense journey
through the
complex landscape of IR theory,
Absolutely.
where the stakes are high because this is about the future of...
We understand global politics.
Yeah. So Dunn, Hansen, and White, as editors of the European Journal of International Relations, they have a front row seat to this world of IR theory.
Yeah.
And they've noticed something interesting. They noticed the decline in those real big, debates between different theoretical schools.
Right.
Remember back in the day when we had those paradigm wars?
Paradigm wars.
Between realism, liberalism.
Yeah.
It was the hot topic. All right.
They were always going at it. Now it's where'd everybody go?
So it's almost like we've entered this period of theoretical peace.
Right.
But what does that really mean?
Right. What does that mean? Is it intellectual maturity? Have we kind of moved beyond those? Or has it just become stagnant?
Yeah. Is it a lack of new ideas?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
So they don't really give a definitive answer to that question, but they suggest that it might be just a natural progression, that the focus has shifted. Maybe it's more about refining existing theories.
Testing them.
Yeah.
And refining.
Rather than those ideological battles.
Exactly. It's less about what's the best way to see the world and more about let's actually test these things and see which ones hold up.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, and then they bring up another really interesting point. What are the different types of theory in IR?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us, when we hear theory, we think of
explanatory.
Cause and effect, how things happen.
Right.
But Dunn, Hansen, and White, they give us this much richer kind of tapestry of theory.
Absolutely.
So they talk about explanatory, critical,
informative,
and even
constitutive
theory. Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's unpack some of this, because I think most people are okay with explanatory theory.
It's explanatory.
It's the easiest.
Put it forward.
Yeah. So, what about these other types?
Okay. Well, critical theory, instead of just explaining things as they are, it's more about critiquing
power structures, exposing injustices, right? Embedded within the international system.
So it's not just about explaining how the world works. It's about challenging it. Should it be this way?
Should it be this way?
Yeah.
Right. And that's where normative theory comes in.
Okay.
Right. Because normative theory is really about the ethics, the values. What are our goals in international relations?
So it's almost okay, is this how things should be?
Yes.
Can we imagine something better?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagining a better world.
Yeah.
Not just describing it.
Yeah. Now, constitutive theory.
This one gets really interesting.
Oh, wow. I know.
Because
tell us about it.
It basically says that theories don't just describe the world, they actually shape it.
Shape the world.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Think about it like this. How does our understanding of something like sovereignty influence how states interact? The very act of us theorizing about sovereignty actually shapes the reality of state behavior.
So we're not just observing, we're
writing it.
By thinking about it. That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
So that brings up a really important question for, I think, anyone who's studying international relations. How does your understanding of theory itself influence the way you see global events?
Exactly.
Because it does.
It does.
Our theoretical lenses, that's how we're looking at the world.
That's how we frame things.
Yeah. So we've got this very diverse group of theories.
This
ecosystem of theories.
In IR.
But why,
why so many?
Why are there so many of them?
Right. Why has the field grown this way? Why has it blossomed like this?
Yeah. Why have we seen this blossoming of theoretical perspectives?
Well, tin cans, Hansen and White offer a few reasons, a few insights. They argue, for example, that new historical contexts, things like the end of the Cold War, demanded new theoretical tools, like almost like needing a new map when you're exploring uncharted territory.
Yeah, because it really was.
It really was.
A huge shift.
And the landscape shifted.
Yeah, and so you got to come up with some new ways of looking at it.
You need new ways to make sense of it, right?
Yeah.
New frameworks.
Yeah.
And then they also talk about the influence of
Other disciplines, right?
Yeah. Like feminist theory, for example.
Yeah, from political theory.
Yeah. It really had a huge impact on
Huge impact.
IR, like forcing people to confront
Biasing.
their biases,
Yeah.
blind spots. And then, of course, they talk about developments within IR itself, like how waltzes work.
Yeah. Theory of International Politics, that landmark book,
Yeah.
that really just sparked
Triggered a whole
wave of new debates.
responses.
And new theories, whether they were building upon Waltz.
Or challenging him.
Yeah. So it's almost like
It's like this constant
intellectual
evolution.
Yeah, with new ideas emerging, being tested.
Refined.
Yeah, refined.
Sometimes overturned.
Yeah, even overturned. Now, let's bring in
Kumar,
because Kumar gives us a very different kind of view here. And this might make some people uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because
he talks about
this idea of
epistemological
disobedience. Yeah. What does that even mean?
Right. What does that even mean? So Kumar is arguing that a lot of those grand theories, even though they say they're universal, they're actually deeply rooted in Western historical experience, Western perspectives. And epistemological disobedience is all about challenging those dominant ways of knowing.
Right.
And pushing back against knowledge systems that have been imposed on others.
It's like reclaiming.
Reclaiming, yes.
The right to
think differently. To view the world through lenses that are not necessarily
Western.
Derived from Western thought.
Yeah. And that's a huge challenge.
A huge challenge.
To a lot of traditional thinking in IR.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to further kind of unpack this challenge, he uses terms like
Vernacularization. What is vernacularization?
Yeah. And then he also uses this great phrase, provincializing Europe.
Ooh. That sounds really interesting. Yeah. So let's unpack those a little bit.
Yeah.
Vernacularization, I think, for most people.
Yeah. If you think about it literally.
Literally, it sounds like, okay, you're taking these big theories and you're kind of translating them. Into the language and experience.
Language experience of a particular region or culture. Right.
Acknowledging that a theory developed in one context might not perfectly fit in another.
Yet doesn't translate.
You have to.
Necessarily. You have to adapt it. You have to reinterpret it. You have to make it relevant to the specific realities of different parts of the world.
Now, provincializing Europe.
I love that phrase.
I know, it's a great phrase.
I mean, just think about it.
It sounds like it's really about challenging that Eurocentric worldview.
That underpins a lot of IR theory.
Yeah. So it's like saying, okay, Europe, Western thought, it's not.
It's not the center of the universe.
Yeah. Geographically or intellectual?
Not geographically, not intellectually.
Right. It's about recognizing that there's diversity of perspectives, there's diversity of experiences.
Yeah. And we need to move beyond that Eurocentric understanding of how the world works.
Yeah. So how does Kumar connect this critique of grand theories with this idea of the end of IR theory? Is he saying that maybe the decline of those big debates?
That's exactly what he's saying. He's saying it's a symptom of their inherent limitations. Okay.
And he even cites Mearsheimer and Walt. Yeah.
Remember them.
Well, they're big proponents of
grand theory.
Grand theory, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even they criticize what they call simplistic hypothesis testing in IR.
So even people who like big overarching theories are starting to say, there are some issues with how we're testing them.
Yes.
Okay.
So they're basically saying, look, this overemphasis on hypothesis testing, it is important, but it can lead to a really narrow focus on quantifiable data.
Okay.
And we might end up neglecting those broader why questions. The big questions that grand theories are actually supposed to be addressing.
It's like we're so busy gathering all these data points that we miss the bigger picture.
We're missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah. And then Kumar highlights this ontological plurality.
Yeah.
as a big challenge to grand theories,
Right.
which basically suggests
That there are multiple realities, multiple ways of
being in the world,
being in the world.
that these grand theories, with their universal explanations, maybe can't capture.
Don't always capture
Right. So it's not just about
different perspectives.
different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging that
Our different
ways of being,
in the world.
different ontologies.
Different ontologies. So,
right.
so you start to see, okay, this theoretical piece that Dunn, Hansen, and White are observing, maybe it is a sign of maturity. But also
it's a sign that these
grand theories have limitations.
Yeah.
And we need to go beyond them.
So these are really big challenging questions.
They strike at the very heart of how we understand international relations.
Yeah. And to illustrate this even more,
Right.
we're going to dive into a specific example in the next part.
Yeah.
We're going to look at
Ayub's
subaltern realism.
subaltern realism.
So stay tuned.
So we've been talking about these big questions like the nature of IR theory, the future of it, where is it all going?
Yeah.
Now let's look at a specific example that really challenges some of those traditional assumptions.
Right.
We're going to look at Ayub's subaltern realism.
Subaltern realism.
Okay.
Now, from what I gather, this is kind of like a mid-range theory,
It is.
meaning it focuses on particular regions' issues rather than trying to explain
Everything.
everything.
It's not a grand theory.
Right.
It's not an overarching theory. He's really zooming in on the
postcolonial world.
postcolonial world.
Okay.
And he's offering a powerful critique of this traditional
What is that? The inside-outside?
inside-outside divide.
Okay, explain that. What is he pushing back against?
So theories like neorealism, which focus on international anarchy as the main driver of state behavior,
Yeah.
they tend to treat states as these like unified actors
Okay.
operating in this like separate realm of international politics.
Okay.
They don't pay much attention to
What's going on inside?
what's happening inside states.
Okay. So they kind of black box
They black box it.
all the inner workings and just say, okay,
How do they act on the global stage?
how do they interact?
Yeah.
But Ayub argues that, look, that approach is
Fraud.
deeply flawed, especially when we're trying to understand conflict and security in the post-colonial world.
Okay.
He says we have to pay attention to
The inside.
what's happening inside those states, because a lot of times
Yeah.
the most pressing security threats
Yeah.
come from within,
Yeah.
not from other states.
So instead of saying, okay, these states are rational, they're unitary,
Right.
he's saying, hold on a second, there's all this stuff going on.
All this stuff.
Power struggles, social divisions
Colonial legacies.
that are still shaping how these societies function.
Yeah. So he's saying many of these post-colonial states are characterized by
Domestic anarchy.
domestic anarchy,
Right.
weak institutions, internal conflicts,
Right.
struggles for legitimacy.
Okay, so it's almost like, if you have, if you're building a house and the foundation's all cracked,
Yes.
eventually it's going to affect.
The whole structure.
Yeah. But, okay, so
Yeah.
how does this challenge our understanding of anarchy? I mean, isn't the international system still anarchic?
Yes.
Even if we look at what's going on inside states.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of what Ayub is trying to do here.
Okay. Right.
While neorealists
Yeah.
are emphasizing international anarchy.
The lack of a world government.
Right, that absence of a global authority
Yeah.
to enforce the rules.
Mhm.
Ayub is saying,
Don't forget about domestic anarchy.
especially in this post-colonial context.
Right.
So the biggest threat for some of these states might not be
Might not be some big, bad
progressive.
neighbor across the border.
Yeah.
It might be
It's-
the instability and conflict within their own borders.
Yeah. And his focus on this post-colonial condition really adds that historical dimension
It does.
to how we understand the international system.
Right. It's not
It's
just
not just a snapshot.
describing the world as it is right now.
Right.
He's tracing those historical legacies,
Yeah.
showing how the experience of colonialism continues to
To shape those states.
shape how states
Yeah.
function internally
Yep.
and how they behave externally.
Yeah. So like, constructivists, they talk about how ideas, norms, they shape the world.
In the present.
Now, right. But Ayub's saying, well, hold on a second. We've got to look at all this baggage.
historical baggage.
Yeah, from colonialism. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're trying to understand how a person behaves, you can't just look at what's happening to them now.
You got to look at,
Where did they come from? What are their experiences?
what was their childhood like? What were their traumas?
What were their relationships like?
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big difference.
It's a big difference
Exercise.
between Ayub's subaltern realism
Yeah.
and a theory like, let's say, Wentz constructivism.
Right.
So remind our listeners.
For those of you who don't know, constructivism basically argues that,
Anarchy is what states make of it.
that it's not inherent.
It's not inherently conflictual.
Yeah. It's all about the...
It's about the ideas,
Yeah.
the norms, the identities
Right.
that states hold.
So constructivists are interested in ideas
They are.
and how they shape reality.
They shape the world.
Right.
But what Ayub does is
Ads.
he adds another layer of complexity.
Okay.
He says, yeah, ideas are important.
Yeah.
Norms are important.
Yeah.
But they don't just exist in some kind of abstract ether. They're embedded in these historical power structures.
Okay.
And those power structures
Yeah.
continue to shape
How states behave.
how states interact,
Yeah.
even after formal colonialism has ended.
So it's not enough to say, okay, these ideas shape behavior. You got to say, well, where did those ideas come
Where
from?
do they come from?
Who's benefiting from them?
Who benefits?
How did they?
Do they reinforce existing power dynamics?
Yeah.
And this is where we can bring back
Dunn, Hansen.
Dunn, Hansen, and White's concept of
Integrative
pluralism.
pluralism. Yeah.
Remember, they were arguing against
One big theory
searching for that one
to explain everything.
grand theory of everything.
Right.
And subaltern realism is a great example
It is, yeah.
of why that's important.
Yeah.
Because it offers a perspective that
It's short,
the dominant narrative.
Some of the core assumptions of these traditional theories. Yeah. It's like saying, hey, we've got this story.
You've got this
But there are other stories that need
the need to be told.
to be told.
There are other voices that need to be heard.
Yeah.
Right.
And integrative pluralism is about
Engaging with
those.
different perspectives.
Yeah.
Acknowledging their strengths,
Yeah.
their limitations.
Right.
And seeing how they
Complement each other.
complement each other or challenge each other.
Yeah. It's about embracing
Embracing, yes.
that complexity
The complexity
rather than trying to make everything fit into
into one neat little
a box.
theoretical box.
Yeah.
Right.
I really like that idea of embracing complexity.
Me too.
It feels like
It's more humble. It's more honest
a much more honest approach.
approach to studying international relations.
But isn't there a risk with integrative pluralism that it can kind of lead to?
Oh, yeah. People worry about this theoretical relativism.
Yeah, where anything goes.
Where anything goes.
Right.
Where we lose the ability to
make judgments about,
say, well, which theory
is this one better than that one?
is better? Which one is more useful?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But Dunn, Hansen, and White,
Yeah.
they're very clear that they're not talking about that kind of
Anything
superficial anything go relativism.
Yeah.
They're talking about a real engagement
Right.
with these different theoretical perspectives, which might lead to you modifying or even rejecting
Rejected.
some theories.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's about having that debate.
It's about a rigorous intellectual debate
Where you're really
where you're listening
to the other side.
to the other side
And you're willing to be challenged.
and you're open to the possibility
Yeah.
that you might be wrong,
Yeah, that your view
that your own view
needs to be changed.
needs to be revised
Yeah.
or even abandoned.
Yeah, okay, so I'm starting to see the appeal of integrative pluralism.
It's appealing. It's intellectually stimulating.
Yeah. But I am curious, what does Kumar think about
Oh.
this theoretical piece?
Yeah, you know Kumar. He always has
I gotta have a
slightly different take on things.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as
Progress.
a sign of progress or maturity like some of the other scholars we've talked about.
Okay, so what does he think it is?
He thinks it might be a symptom
Yeah.
of some deeper problems
Okay.
within the field.
All right, I'm listening.
He worries that IR scholars have become too focused on like these, very specific research questions,
Right.
methodological debates, They're missing the forest for the trees. They're so caught up in the details that they're losing sight of those big
The big why.
questions.
The big questions that got them into this in the first place.
Right. Exactly. Those grand questions that once animated the whole field.
Yeah.
So instead of these, big clashes of ideas, we're stuck
Arguing about.
arguing about how to measure things.
Right.
What's the most rigorous statistical method? That kind of stuff.
It's a lot of number crunching, not a lot of
Yeah. It's become,
philosophical debate.
less about the big ideas, more about
The methods.
the methods, the techniques.
Yeah.
And he sees this as connected to what Dunn, Hansen, and White call
What do they call it?
methodological specialization.
Okay.
Scholars become experts in specific research methods,
Yeah.
which is valuable, of course.
Of course, yeah.
But it can also lead to this kind of
Yeah.
intellectual siloing where everyone
in their own
like,
little cubicle, speaking their own jargon.
right.
Right. And so they're not really talking to each
They're
other.
not talking to each other.
Even though they're looking at the same
Even if they're studying the same world.
world. Yeah, yeah.
And they're missing those connections, those broader patterns.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes me think back to what Mearheimer and Walt were saying
Right.
about simplistic hypothesis testing.
You might be surprised to learn that even the scholars who, really like those big theories are
Yeah.
starting to worry about how we're testing them.
Yeah.
It's become too much about
The number.
the numbers, not enough about the
why.
why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And Kumar picks up on this. He says that this focus on just testing
Yeah.
might actually be hindering
Theoretical development.
We're so focused on, proving or disproving
Yeah.
these very narrow hypotheses
Yeah.
that we're not asking the big, bold questions anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
And this brings up another point that Dunn, Hansen, and White make.
which is that IR scholars really need to pay more attention to what's happening
Outside
outside of IR.
our little world.
Right. In other fields.
Yeah.
They say that IR has been really slow
Yeah.
to acknowledge the impact of,
Technology.
things like new media technologies.
Yeah. The internet. I mean, this is
The internet
a
of all that.
huge deal.
It's transforming global politics.
Yeah.
But a lot of IR scholarship
It's a deal.
is still stuck in this
20th century.
20th century mindset. Yeah, like we're in this little bubble ignoring all the massive changes happening around us.
Yeah. It's almost like, if you're a fish
Yeah,
and you're swimming in the ocean,
right.
but you're only paying attention to the school of fish that you're part of.
Real school.
You're missing the whole,
Whales.
the sharks.
The currents.
Yeah. Okay. But they do say
They do say
that there are some.
that some ideas from other fields, like evolutionary biology, neuroscience, they're starting to make their way into IR.
Okay.
Often through, disciplines like psychology, economics.
Yeah. Which kind of makes sense.
It does. And this kind of cross-pollination of ideas can be really fruitful.
It's like taking a dish that you've always made the same way and then adding
a new spice.
To it.
Right.
It's like, wow, this is
completely different.
interesting.
But it still works.
Yeah,
Right. But, they do caution against
Blindly.
just blindly importing these theories
Yeah.
without really thinking about
Does this work?
how does this apply to IR?
Yeah. What are the limitations?
What are the limitations? What are the unique questions that IR is concerned with?
Yeah. Okay, so it's about being
It's about being thoughtful.
thoughtful. Yeah.
Okay. It's about having that,
Integrative pluralism.
integrative pluralism mindset,
Yeah.
being open to new ideas,
Yeah.
but also being rigorous,
Yeah.
discerning about how we apply them.
Yeah. Well, this has been
This has been quite a dense,
but fascinating.
deep dive. Deep dive.
We've talked about, all these different types of theory, the debate about theoretical piece, the challenge to grand theories from perspectives like subaltern realism.
Yeah.
Integrative pluralism.
So much to think about.
Yeah. And I think it's really clear that IR is at this point where it's asking
Big questions.
big questions about itself.
About its own future.
Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. What are we doing? What are we
Right.
trying to achieve?
What are we trying to achieve? Yeah. And that's, I think, what makes it so exciting.
It's exciting.
A study. So we want to leave you, our listeners, with some questions to ponder.
Okay. Yeah.
Which theory resonated most with you?
Which one did you find most compelling?
Yeah. And how might it change the way you
How might it change the way you interpret
look at current events?
the world around you?
Yeah. Do you think
Do you think IR theory
has reached a point of stagnation.
Stagnation? Or are we on the verge of some
Something new and
new and exciting
a new era that embraces
complexity?
Complexity.
Challenges Eurocentric.
Challenges those Eurocentric assumptions
Yeah.
and brings in those insights from other fields.
Yeah. We encourage you to,
To keep exploring.
keep exploring.
To keep questioning.
Keep questioning, yeah.
To keep diving deep.
Yeah, keep diving deep into all these topics. Stay tuned for
Yeah.
future deep dives.
Future deep dive.
We'll explore,
Specific theories.
specific theories, pressing global issues
Global issues.
in more detail. So until then,
Until then,
keep thinking
keep thinking.
and keep diving deep.